and we're back once again, this time recapping the divisional round. It was a good week of football, had an upset, and before we discuss it at length, don't forget to like, comment, and hit the subscribe button. Let's get right into the video. Let's talk about the Commanders shocking the world and upsetting the Detroit Lions. Jaden Daniels is him. He's young, he's poised, he's confident, and he's just a leader. It might be premature to say this, but I truly do believe that he is the best quarterback in the NFC. I mentioned in my predictions video, I was intrigued to see what Detroit was going to do in order to scheme against them, and they really didn't have any answers to slow him down, nor that offense. The blitz, which was the Detroit Lions' bread and butter all season long, just was not effective against Daniels, and that's because he has this patience of understanding the coverages defenses are throwing at him, and that led to him being able to shred apart this defense. Also, credit to the running game. I mentioned that they had to have some success there to help them pull off the upset. Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, their production in that game was similar to what we had saw early in the season when this offense was at its best. And I want to give credit to that Washington Commanders defense. They did bend, but they didn't break. Jahmyr Gibbs had a great game, and then Laporta and crew made some incredible plays and catches. But what allowed this defense to get the edge over that great offense was the fact that they were able to create takeaways. Those takeaways led to points and stole not only possessions away from the Lions, but also snatched the energy and momentum out of Ford Field. Overall, this was a great moment for an upstart team. And then for the Detroit Lions, this was such a disappointing conclusion for their season. I look at Jared Goff. He had an awful game at the wrong time of the year. The aforementioned turnovers were very much deflating, and it halted any momentum the Lions had of getting back into the game. That defensive unit, I feel really bad for them. They fought hard, but the injuries finally caught up to them, and they were just no match for the personnel of the Washington Commanders. In the aftermath of this game, I just wonder what's next for Detroit, because this is still a young team. They still have some talent, but they're going to be losing their coordinators more than likely. While recording, Ben Johnson is on his way to Chicago to take the head coaching gig there. More than likely, Aaron Glenn's going to be getting an opportunity to get a head coaching job somewhere else. I think offensively, I'm more curious to see how that's going to affect Jared Goff in this offense. I wonder if they're still going to be able to be just as prominent. And then defensively, I think that's going to be a massive hit because this defense was okay, but I think Aaron Glenn was able to get the best out of that unit. I have faith that Dan Campbell is going to find the right guys, and I'm sure it's going to be a desirable spot. I think for the most part, this franchise is going to be fine, but man, it's just a missed opportunity. Moving on, we got the Kansas City Chiefs defeating the Houston Texans, making this their 7th straight AFC title game appearance. I know there was a lot of controversy surrounding the refs and their calls, and I'll get to that in a second, but this game was KC football. This wasn't a spectacular performance by the team as a whole, but in all 3 phases of the game, this Kansas City Chiefs team was able to make plays in crucial moments, and then they allowed their opponents to beat themselves. When I look at that offense, we saw a vintage Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce game, and I called it because this duo, they always show up in the postseason, and when it matters most, you can count on them to deliver. I do have one concern because it felt like it was Travis Kelce or nothing. I think in the championship game, they're going to have to get more of those receivers involved, because if you lay it all on Travis Kelce's shoulders, I think that makes you a little too one-dimensional. I'm not going to lie, the Chiefs are not beating the ref allegations because there were 2 very questionable unnecessary roughness penalties called on the Houston Texans. Both of those calls extended Chiefs drives that ultimately led to points. Every time there's a big stage for the Kansas City Chiefs, it feels like the refs are giving them a bailout call, and that ultimately has an impact on the outcome of the game. And when it comes to the postseason, you just can't have that. I'm just more upset because it takes away from the fact that the Chiefs just know how to win these games. And it will be interesting to see what happens with the refs in the title game. I want to give credit to the Texans. I felt they played with all their heart, and they were very game, but they just beat themselves ultimately. And this is what I mentioned where the Chiefs forced other teams to beat themselves. You have 2 missed kicks, another field goal gets blocked at the end of the game, and then to open the game, the special teams kickoff gave up a long return, added on by a 15-yard penalty. You can do that in these type of games. I thought for the most part, the offense was solid. They had a lot more success in the running game than I expected. If they were able to protect CJ, there's a chance that they could have maybe won this game. The O-line gave up 8 sacks. That is just remarkable, but it's on theme for the Texans this year. I imagine going into the offseason that the front office is going to prioritize revamping that O-line, because going forward, CJ is your franchise quarterback. So you need to make sure that he's protected and that he doesn't get hurt out there. Next, we got my LA Rams unfortunately falling short against the Philadelphia Eagles on the road, 28-22. In a 6-point loss, those back-to-back fumbles in the beginning of the fourth quarter really cost us the game, as it led to 2 field goals. Outside the turnovers, I thought our offense just arrived too late. We weren't able to get Puka and Cooper Kupp involved until that fourth quarter, and by then it's like you have to be perfect and you have to execute in order for us to have had a chance to win the game. But there was opportunities for us to take the lead or at least put points on the board, and we just didn't do that. The defense, they weren't too bad. The big plays are really what stands out to me. When they were in the red zone, we did a great job of forcing them to kick field goals. It was just giving up those long plays to open up the game. Jalen Hurts went on a 20-30 yard scramble that turned into 6. And then Saquon had 2 long run touchdowns that ultimately doomed us and made this game more difficult to come back in. I love Jared Verse. I think he's going to be our next AD. He has the personality for it, and he had a great game. And I'm excited to see that his leadership and his energy showed up, and it definitely propelled this team. I'm curious to see what we're going to do in the offseason, because there's a lot of rumors circulating about the future with Cooper Kupp. And then I heard some rumors saying that Matthew Stafford is going to consider his future. I expect there to be some adjustments made to the run defense because we got bullied all season long, and that can happen if we want to win another Super Bowl. We got the Eagles clinching their spot to host the NFC title game. Saquon is that guy. It's just his greatness was masked by the stench that is the New York Giants. Easily, he was the difference maker of this game, especially when that passing game didn't have much success. I thought to begin the game they were good, but once the weather and the conditions started to get worse and then Jalen Hurts got injured, the passing game took a bit of a hit. With Saquon, we already know he's going to be an impactful player for this Eagles team, and if they want to reach the Super Bowl, it's going to rest on his shoulders. But I am curious to see what the status for Jalen Hurts is going to be next week. He got rolled up, looked like he suffered a knee injury. Is he going to be compromised in any way? Because if he is, and he's not able to really run, I'm stacking the box, and I'm forcing Jalen Hurts to beat me with his arm. As for the defense, they played well as I expected them to. Jalen Carter is an incredible player, and combine him with all the weapons in the secondary, this defense is loaded, and it's going to be a great matchup next week because this is going to be the rubber match between the Commanders and the Eagles. In the first game, the Commanders' offense struggled. In the second game, they found some success. So I'm curious to see what the Eagles' defense is going to do to make this game difficult for Jay Daniels on the road. And lastly, we got the Buffalo Bills clinching their spot in the AFC title game, defeating the Baltimore Ravens 27-25. It's just a painful ending for what's probably going to be another MVP season for Lamar Jackson. The critics just have more fuel against him now, and I hate to see that because Lamar is a great quarterback. The first half, he was not great. He had 2 turnovers, the fumble being more costly because it led to a touchdown drive for Buffalo. But the second half, he brought it back. He put his team in position to force overtime. Unfortunately, Mark Andrews had not only his worst game of his career probably, but his worst quarter. The fourth quarter, he has that fumble where it took away a lot of the Ravens' momentum as they were on their way to maybe scoring more points, and instead that leads to a field goal to extend the lead for the Bills. And then he missed the catch on the 2-point conversion on what could have sent the game into OT. Elsewhere in that offense, I was surprised that Derrick Henry didn't have a standout performance. Going back to week 4, he shredded that defensive line. Credit the Buffalo Bills defense because they got manhandled back in week 4, but they flipped the script. They controlled the line of scrimmage, and they dictated the outcome of the game. They forced Lamar Jackson to win this game with his arm. And Lamar can beat you like that, but the Baltimore Ravens' success all season long was predicated on running the football and putting the ball in Derrick Henry's hands. And for that defense, they did not have their best performance either. I thought they got outplayed in the trenches because Josh Allen didn't have a crazy game. He only threw for 127, and then he ran 1 touchdown in. Really, their success offensively was because the running game was able to have success. When it comes to the offseason, I don't know what the Ravens are going to do. I believe Kyle Hamilton's probably going to be up for an extension soon, so you want to make sure you handle business there. I assume that they're going to improve the defense because it did take a step back, but overall it comes down to both Lamar and this organization getting over that hump. And I have faith that Lamar can do it. It's just a matter of when he's going to do it. On to the Buffalo Bills. As I mentioned, this was not the typical MVP performance you see from Josh Allen. I want to give credit to just the game plan from an offensive standpoint and defensive standpoint, because they control both line of scrimmages, and that ultimately allowed this Buffalo team to determine how the game script was going to go. And now this sets up yet another rematch in the postseason between the Chiefs and the Bills. The Chiefs are Buffalo's kryptonite. They've been able to have success in the regular season, but postseason they have not. I have said all year that if there was ever a time for Josh Allen and the Bills organization to get over the hump, it will be this year. The run game that they've had so far, if they can do that next week, watch out. If you guys made it to the end of the video, don't forget to like, share your thoughts about this past weekend of football. I thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.